You're listening to the Nutrition Experts Podcast, featuring guests who take the scientific talk about food and break it down for practical use. You've heard the phrase, "You are what you eat." Come find out what that really means. Experience conversations with experts in the field of nutrition and understand the power of food for our health, well-being, and beyond. Now, here's your host, registered dietitian and nutritionist, Mathea Ford.
Hi there, it's Mathea. Welcome back to the Nutrition Experts Podcast, the podcast featuring nutrition experts who are leading the way using food starts today, right now, with our next guest. It's great to have Ryan Baggett on the show today. Ryan, welcome to Nutrition Experts.
Thank you, Mathea.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really looking forward to talking with you about sports nutrition.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show and talk a little bit more about sports nutrition, kind of in depth, what you do with your people you work with. So tell my listeners a little more about you and what you do.
I'm a local sports dietitian here in Oklahoma City. I've been working with a store called Red Coyote Running and Fitness. Ever since I finished school 6 years ago, I've been with this company. We've got 2 locations here around the Oklahoma City area. And the great thing about this is, as a local business, they've been really flexible with me about letting me kind of start my own private practice as a sports dietitian and really encouraging me and helping me market myself to get different clients from the wide range of customers that we get at our store. So at Red Coyote, I mean, we get people who are walking, trying to run their first 5K, people who thought they could never run at all and are trying to get into it, to people who are running half and full marathons. So the type of people I see really varies from people looking to get healthy, lose weight, just get into exercise in general, up to the people who are, training for the Boston Marathon, the New York City Marathon, who are really fast runners. And once a week, I actually just work as a regular sales employee on Sundays at their Edmond location, helping people get into their running gear, and gives me a nice little discount to kind of supplement my own running, in addition to my private practice that I do through their store.
So you also mentioned before we got on the podcast that you work some with the running groups.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So at Red Coyote, we have a newbie running group, which is kind of like a couch to 5K, getting people trained for that first 3.1 mile race that you see a lot of, especially in the summertime. We also have a 5K to 10K program, so getting up to 6.2 miles. And then, in Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Marathon is huge. Over 20,000 people run that every year. So we have our own half and full marathon training program. I usually show up to some of the training runs. I like to bring snacks, that I have from my nutrition blog, something to kind of get them over to talk to me. They can ask questions and I can answer them for them, anything they have about running, nutrition, overall healthy foods, especially for training, or if they're looking to get with a dietitian and do some one-on-one time, then I have my cards available and we can set the time to do more individualized nutrition appointment.
So as someone who works with both athletes, like you mentioned, running the Boston or the New York Marathon, and weekend warriors, people who are just getting started or maybe just not really big time runners, what is your main advice about how to eat for working out?
I mean, I would say my biggest advice to people is don't skip the carbs, which, no one ever should be disappointed when I tell you to eat carbs. I love carbs and their ability to get you through a workout. Bad diets aside, there's always going to be something. Protein and fat will never provide you that quick energy source that carbs do. Not to say that on a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour run, you're not going to be using more fats and carbs for fuel. But ultimately, you have to have glucose to continue to oxidize that fat for energy. So you don't want to avoid them in your training because your body is using that. And any sort of intense exercise requires carbohydrates. So it's one of those things, starting some intense exercise program is not the time to cut out carbs. But I feel like a lot of times that goes hand in hand when people are trying to get healthier. It's like, oh, I'm not going to eat carbs anymore. I'm going to go get to the gym. And, you're not going to last very long doing that before you just start to feel really drained when you're exercising.
But you're not really talking about carbs like a Hershey bar. You're talking about a different kind of carb, right?
Yes, but I feel like a lot of times those not as healthy carbs, so things like candy, chips, white rice, lots of breads and desserts and things, sodas, the foods that don't really offer a lot of nutrients, people tend to lump in the healthy carbs, things like sweet potatoes and regular potatoes, peas, whole grains, whole grain breads, oatmeal, oats, things like that. A lot of times people kind of lump them up in fruit, especially fruit. People tend to lump those all together as all carbs are bad, when in fact, those healthier carbs, the oats, the fruits, the starch vegetables, whole grains, those are really what you should be focusing on for starting when you're working out. And, especially as your exercise progresses. I mean, those are the foods that are going to provide fiber. They're going to provide the antioxidants and nutrients that your body needs to be able to heal and recover from the damage that you do exercising. I mean, it's a good damage. It makes you stronger, but it still requires energy and nutrients to heal from.
Usually you have kind of different days where you do different activities. Some days you do aerobics, some days you weight train. Should you eat differently on workout days versus non-workout days, or on strength training versus aerobic?
Yes, to some extent. I mean, on a rest day compared to an exercise day, especially around the actual exercise itself, you should be eating a little bit more on those exercise days. For a lot of people, they work out either first thing in the morning or after work. And if you haven't eaten since lunch and you're trying to work out at 5:30, I mean, that's a long time where you haven't necessarily had anything. So, whether you do or don't do a snack in the afternoon, it's one of those things maybe you need to want to beef up your snack a little bit, add in a granola bar, a flavored yogurt, a banana, something with some extra kind of starchy carbs in it to get you through your actual exercise. Whereas maybe on a rest day, you could do a small snack, or you wouldn't necessarily need to worry about having a bigger snack like that. Because obviously exercise requires calories to fuel. So, I mean, I usually try to get people to not necessarily just eat a lot more overall, but to specifically eat those extra calories you're probably going to burn around your actual workout. That way you have extra energy to complete the exercise. And then afterwards, hopefully getting in some of those healthy carbs, whether it be fruit or whole grains or starchy vegetables like the potato with protein afterwards. I know a favorite for me, it's like a baked potato with chicken and beans and some vegetables. Like, that's a great recovery meal. People underestimate potatoes. They are super healthy if you cook them correctly. Just, don't let them down with butter and sour cream. And then as far as protein, that's actually something I've been doing a lot of research on lately. And it really does vary with exercise, how much protein you need. It's going to be different based on what your goals are. So if you're someone who just the average exerciser, probably that 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram that they just recommend, that's going to keep most people healthy. If you're a healthy person, is probably enough. But if you're starting to run, well, then they recommend you get closer to 1.2 grams per kilogram. If you're looking to build muscle or maintain muscle during weight loss, because, unfortunately, we don't lose just fat whenever we lose weight. So increasing protein in addition to strength training can actually minimize how much lean tissue you lose during weight loss. And that gets up to more like 1.8 to 2 grams per kilogram. So you're looking at over double just the regular recommendation of protein if strength and weight loss is a goal. So it really can vary based on what type of exercise and what your body composition goals are for how much protein you need with exercise.
So you recommend to people typically if they're starting or getting ready to start running, you lead them towards more of like the healthier carb, higher carb, a little more protein and managed fats type of diet?
Yeah, keeping, for someone, maybe looking to start that 5K training, getting up to, just starting into running, still keeping carbs around 50% of your total calories, not going too low. And then with protein, sticking between that recommended 0.8 grams per day up to about 1.2 grams per day. So maybe just a little bit extra, but it's not something as far, especially for fueling the exercise itself. That's where carbs are going to be more important. And then as far as recovery, endurance running doesn't really require extra protein, as much extra protein for recovery as weightlifting does, because it's working slightly different muscle fibers. The main benefit with extra protein with running is that it can help prevent muscle soreness, and it helps reduce the damage that occurs with, breaking down those muscle fibers from the actual exercise itself. But it's not going to be quite as much as with strength training.
Okay, so we talked about food a little bit. What about water? Do you have advice about water intake or hydrating, depending on the weather, depending on the day?
Yes. So sweat loss is one of those things that is extremely unique person to person. Some people don't sweat a lot, and some people sweat liters upon liters per hour. I mean, obviously temperature and humidity is going to have the biggest difference. Dehydration generally isn't a huge concern in the colder months. Now, if you're going to be out there for full marathon training, like 3-4 hours, yes, you're going to be losing water. You're going to be losing electrolytes. You need to take fluid and electrolytes with you. But, when it's cold, most people exercising are going to be fine doing just water as long as the exercise is lasting about an hour or less. It's when you start to get over an hour of exercise that it starts to become important to start replacing lost carbohydrates and lost electrolytes. But as far as how much you should drink, that's where really figuring out how much you sweat becomes important. And you can do that, if you know you're going to be out there for a couple hours, you can weigh yourself without clothes on before you say go for a run. And then the goal is to prevent a greater than 2% weight loss. So 2% of water. You don't want to lose more than 2% of your body weight on a run. So if you go on a 3-hour run and you weigh 150 pounds, that's 3 pounds would be 2%. So then when you come back from your run, take your clothes back off, hop on the scale. And as long as you didn't lose over 3 pounds, then you know that you hydrated enough. Say you lost 4 pounds. Well, then you would know that on that next 3-hour run that you do, if the temperature is similar, you need to drink an extra at least 16 ounces of water during the run to keep your weight loss less than that 2%. But as far as how much you drink on the run, generally if you're getting in the hotter weather, closer to 16 ounces an hour is usually good for most people. Colder weather, some people can get by with not much at all, but it's really going to depend on how much you sweat as an individual.
So on days that you're not working out, do you have a recommended hydration that people should do versus when they're running?
Yeah, I usually say if you're getting close to 100 ounces a day with fluid, then you're probably going to stay adequately hydrated, just, exercise aside. But a lot of people don't realize that liquid foods, so things like soups, and then foods that have a high water content, so fruits and vegetables, all these things count towards hydration as well. So I usually tell people, if you're finding yourself going to the bathroom every 30 minutes, you're probably overhydrating. But, if you're getting around that 100 ounces a day and you're not rushing to the bathroom all the time, then you're probably hydrating pretty well. Usually the best way to tell if you're hydrated day to day is to check your first morning urine whenever you wake up and go to the bathroom first thing. As long as it's a pale color, not super dark, and as long as there's a decent amount of it and it's pale, you did a pretty good job hydrating the day before. A lot of times if someone didn't drink enough, you're out exercising, it'll be darker first thing in the morning. So that's a really good way to kind of judge your daily hydration, just by checking that first morning bathroom break.
Mm-hmm. So what types of beverages do you recommend people use to hydrate? There's just plain water, and then you've got the Gatorade, Powerade type stuff, and then there's also flavored waters. What do you recommend? Anything that's colder is actually going to empty faster in your stomach. So if you want to hydrate faster, the colder the beverage, the better hydrated you're going to get. Obviously, in hot temperatures, cold water is more palatable too. Anything with flavor and carbs, or flavor or carbs, it can be 0 calories of flavor, or it can be something that contains carbs. It encourages more drinking than plain water. They've done studies where they have people run on a track and just let them kind of grab water as needed. And they've shown that people will drink more when it's flavored compared to plain water at the same temperature. So if you have a problem with hydration, keep it cold, keep it flavored. If you want something flavored without calories, like you're not necessarily burning, you're not about it for 3 hours. They even make a lot of times like electrolyte flavored tabs that don't have sugar in them that you can add to water. So it adds a little bit of flavor, a little bit of electrolyte, but not necessarily calories. A lot of people when they're especially running will use gels or beans or some sort of gummy as a carb replacement. So then for their fluid, it's more about just staying hydrated. So electrolytes in water, but getting carbs elsewhere is sometimes how people will do it. Obviously Gatorade, Powerade, all that are good options for replacing calories and replacing electrolytes at the same time while staying hydrated. So you mentioned that you have some elite athletes and you have some people who are starting kind of in the middle. Do you have a lot of people who are trying to lose weight through exercise that you talk to? Yes, I would say that 75-80% of the people that I'm seeing are trying to lose weight, as well as in general get more active. Trying to do it together kind of helps motivate the other one. How do you help them with the weight loss?
I know calorie counting is a very, very dividing topic among a lot of dietitians. Some are super, super against it. They're totally in favor of that intuitive eating. Calories set up people to have terrible relationships with food. But I honestly feel like it's probably more based on your personal goals, whether or not calorie counting may or may not be beneficial. For me, someone looking to improve their body composition and get fit, my average client is not just someone looking to improve their relationship with food and improve their overall health. For someone who's just trying to get healthier, wants some education on how to eat healthier, in general, I would say that intuitive eating, that let's look at your diet, make some substitutions, get it healthier, is usually enough to lead them in the right direction to be a healthier person overall. But people coming to me, they have specific weight or body composition goals. And I do feel like calorie counting does help most of them. I never tell people, hey, guess what? You have to count calories the rest of your life. No, that's not it. It's just that I have found that most people have absolutely no idea how much food they're eating. And when it comes to trying to figure out how to lose weight, it's usually a pretty big wake up call when they just log for a couple of weeks and see, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that going out to eat here, that this meal had 1,000 calories in it. And so I feel like it's usually a good jump starter for people to kind of start to make some healthy changes. And most people eat pretty routinely, honestly, throughout the week. So once you kind of get the hang of things, you may or may not need to log. Usually it's kind of a good check-in every now and then to plug in what you're eating throughout the day. Because especially I always tell clients like foods like peanut butter, avocado, oil, like, even if it's extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil or, whatever the coolest oil is right now, those foods are definitely, those be heart healthy fats. They're good for you, nuts, peanut butter, seeds, all that, but they do pack calories too. So if your goal is to keep your carbs up for exercise and lose weight, well, generally the calories have to come from fat. You still always should be keeping your fat at least above 15% just because you need fat for hormone production. In general, if you're doing too much peanut butter on stuff, well, that's replacing calories that should be coming from carbohydrates for exercise. And so for me, I feel like calorie counting does help people realize where their calories are coming from. And as part of most of my initial appointments, I actually test people's resting metabolism. So when I first started 6 years ago with Red Coyote, they purchased the Body Gym indirect calorimeter for me. And so I can test people's resting metabolisms as part of our initial visit, show them, hey, this is what your baseline is based on your job, based on how much exercise you're doing. This is a good idea of how many calories you're burning a day. So let's set up realistic weight loss based off of this. And for most people, it's, either they're disappointed because it's not as low as they think they are, or they can kind of see, oh, I have a desk job. I'm only working out an hour a week. This probably isn't why I'm losing weight. So for me, it's actually very helpful to show people calories. Now, of course, I still teach them, this is why you should eat fiber. This is why fruits and vegetables are important. This is how you can stay full and healthy doing some reduced calories here, this week or that week to lose weight while still doing it in a healthy way. It's not just, oh, hey, just fill up with calories and you're good. There's obviously other education that goes along with it.
So the indirect calorimetry, do you find that's pretty accurate or at least close enough? Or
I do feel like it's close enough because I have found that the people, this is obviously a lot smaller of my population, but the people who do come for me to gain weight, generally younger men, older men who have just always been pretty thin and have a hard time putting on muscle. Generally, I will see that their metabolisms are on the upper end of normal or even above that. I'm like, well, hey, this makes sense why you have a hard time gaining weight. You have a fast metabolism. And then I'll see a lot of people, a lot of, say, middle-aged women, I get a lot of people in their 40s and their 50s, and they'll come in like, hey, I have a hard time losing weight. And, either their metabolism is in the normal range, but it's a little bit lower, or maybe it's 100 or 200 calories lower than what's predicted based on their weight, which, most of that's genetics. But, if they've done a lot of crash diets, it could be slightly lower because, they've been doing too extreme calorie deficits, which can temporarily lower your metabolism, if you're trying to cut back too much too fast. Again, I have nothing to compare it to besides like equations, but in general, I do find that if someone kind of sticks to the initial plan that we said, that they will usually see the results that we expect, assuming, that occupational activity can really make a big difference for some people, because some people just sit all day long and they don't even really fidget, whereas other people may burn a few extra 100 calories here and there by getting up for, they're a chronic foot tapper or something. And that really can't add up over the course of the day, just those kind of little non-exercise activity calories.
what would you say are some great snacks? I mean, you made me think before you were talking about like snacks in the afternoon and depending on whether you're exercising or not. What are some great snacks that you recommend for people who are, exercising and trying to lose weight, making a snack a little healthier instead of just grabbing something out of the vending machine?
Yeah, I always kind of stress people, especially if you're doing it before exercise, make sure it has some good carbs and a little bit of protein. You don't want to do something that's all protein because that's not going to give you that quick energy that you need during exercise. But, doing like a banana, like any piece of fruit in a cheese stick or something. If you don't do dairy, edamame is a great way to get in some good healthy carbs and protein. They even like roast and salt them now, especially compared to chips. Doing something like a roasted edamame or roasted chickpea that you can just buy like prepackaged will give you a lot more protein and healthy carbs than just grabbing a bag of fried chips from the vending machine. Obviously we don't want people overdo sugar. I mean, everyone eats more sugar than they should. But I always tell people when it comes to exercise, that's where doing something like a flavored Greek yogurt is perfect because it does have a little extra sugar, but you're going to use that when you go exercise. Or like I have a weird obsession with Fig Newtons. Like they're all carbs. They're fat free. They were a part of the 90s craze. But I love them. So I don't just snack on them during the day. But, if I want to go exercise, I'll get those, whatever the ones you can buy at Target or Sam's are, where there's the whole grain fig bars or whatever. So a great pre-workout snack. I'm not just going to eat them, but they're great for pre-workout. Or I have a couple recipes, and you can find a million of them on Pinterest for those, like oatmeal, peanut butter, honey. They usually have some chia seeds in them, some dried fruit, or a few chocolate chips. It's just kind of a little energy oat ball that, usually have between like 50 and 60 calories a piece that you can eat one or two of those before you go work out and get some good, you can still get some fiber, get some carbs. And those are, for me, something I can keep in the freezer and are easy to grab one or two, and they're shelf stable. So it's something that you can kind of eat real fast and then go work out without feeling like you're weighing down your stomach. Fruit's always a great thing. Yogurt's like a little protein fine. So things like cheese sticks or cottage cheese are all good, but mostly carbs.
What should you eat after you exercise to recover well, to have a good, next day, reduce soreness, reduce lactic acid, whatever you're trying to do?
Yeah. As making sure that you're staying hydrated is going to be really important for that because, if you're chronically staying dehydrated after an intense workout, then your heart has to work harder to fuel your next exercise session. So you want to stay hydrated. But in general, I mean, you get muscle. I mean, as soon as you're done exercising, even during the act itself, you're getting muscle protein breakdown. The goal is to stop the breakdown and encourage healing and growth. And so in order to do that, that's where protein does come into play, especially with strength training. But again, you also need nutrients and antioxidants to help recover well too. Obviously, the nutrients and antioxidants you get from food, your body can handle and utilize way better than like from popping a multivitamin. So I always kind of encourage, fruit, vegetables, whole grains. Those are going to be great things to help your body recover and heal from the damage of a workout. Anything with lean protein, whether it be lean chicken or fish, dairy, eggs, those are going to be extremely bioavailable forms of protein that your body can use to rebuild. And you want to do that within the first hour or two after you finish exercising. So if you're an evening exerciser, generally, as long as you're going to eat your dinner within a few hours, you don't necessarily need to like chug a protein shake. Now, if it's going to be like 4 hours before you eat, sure, fine, do that. But most of the time, within that 2 hour window, you should be able to go home and have a meal or go somewhere and get some food.
That makes a lot of sense. So what is the most common question that people have about exercise related to nutrition that you get?
I would say it's probably how many carbs should I eat? How many calories should I eat with this exercise? Am I really burning as much as I think? And then as well as how much protein. So carbs and protein are something that people ask me about a lot, probably because it's, especially in the fitness industry, it's so inundated and people, hey, I need protein, like protein bars, protein powders. And, when it comes down to it, like you can get plenty of protein from real food. And, and ideally I like to talk to people about, you want to spread that pretty evenly throughout the day because the maximum benefit if gaining muscle or weight loss is a goal, if your goal is 80 grams of protein a day and you're eating 50 at dinner and 20 at lunch and then at breakfast, well, what about the other 14 hours of the day where you didn't eat any protein? So, it can definitely increase your strength gains and your muscle gains if you spread it out evenly throughout the day. But for most people, it's just more about finding some good sources of carbs and realizing, okay, I can easily overeat these calories. So let's get a realistic idea of what I'm actually doing with exercise so that I can properly fuel without overdoing it. Because I've seen people overeat a 20-mile long run. You're burning over 2,000 calories for most people doing a long run for a marathon. And then at the store, they'll walk next door to Tucker's and get a burger, fries, and a shake. And I'm like, and there goes your 2,000 calories. So it's not as hard to do as you would think it would be.
If you're thinking about the listeners and they're people who are either exercising or maybe they're clinicians or practitioners who are working with people who are starting exercise or doing exercise, what would be your takeaways kind of from our talk that they could use in their day-to-day life?
I think just to find, especially with exercise and food, find an exercise that you enjoy doing, because if you don't like doing it, if your goal is weight loss and you're using exercise to help, as soon as you don't see the weight loss you expect or you're done losing the weight, you're going to stop and it's going to come back on. So, no matter what your current level activity it is, you want to find something that you enjoy doing. And then whether it's, running your first 5K or full marathon, how you eat is going to influence your ability to reach those fitness goals. People put in all this time in the gym, all this time running. So you really want to make it count with providing your body those nutrient-dense foods, the fiber, the proper protein to recover and get stronger versus exercising and then swinging by fast food on your way home and not really encouraging your body to heal as much as it could with those nutrient-dense foods we know we all should be eating, fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Because I have seen a lot of people go from being completely sedentary to running half and full marathons. So it's completely doable. But commitment to eating proper nutrition is very crucial, especially if you're trying to push yourself further. Food is fuel. And if you feed your body those nutritious foods, you're going to help prevent injury. It's going to decrease your risk of getting sick, and it's going to help you with your recovery time between workouts. So, I just think it's one of those things that food is important, obviously, but it's especially important if you're trying to incorporate exercise into it, because they really do go hand in hand. It's kind of hard to exercise all the time and try to get into something more in depth, like a training program, like a half or full, and not properly fuel that with the right type of foods, because you'd really be doing your body a disservice by doing it like fast food all the time and feeding it more junky foods.
So eating better gives them like the fuel to make even more improvements quicker, which they're going to appreciate.
Yeah. And I've seen I've seen several people. It's kind of the same thing. You don't want to undereat for exercise either, because that chronically undereating and trying to hit the gym day after day, you're going to get sick. You're putting yourself at risk for injury to do it that way. And you're just not going to be able to keep it up for very long. So, having that good relationship with food fuels my body, and not, I earned back all these calories, or, I ate this, now I need to go burn that. That's obviously not the type of mindset you want to have when it comes to food and exercise. Food is what gets you through your exercise, and what's going to make you a stronger runner, a better weightlifter. But, you shouldn't use it as a punishment or a reward because you did or didn't do this much exercise. It's a big thing I'd like to kind of push on people too.
That makes a lot of sense. Ryan, I like to ask all of my guests, what is your favorite food? Because I love food, and
who doesn't?
I like to hear what other people love. So,
I would say it's probably a pretty close toss-up between sushi and chocolate, which is a weird combination, but I really do feel like I could eat sushi every day, but I do eat chocolate every day. I always buy that biggest bag of Hershey Kisses you can get, like at Target, and I keep it in my freezer because, I'll have one or two after lunch and one or two after dinner. And that usually keeps my chocolate craving under control if I can just have a little bit after my meals. But yeah, it's a shame I live in Oklahoma because I would eat seafood every day if I could.
I love that idea of freezing them so that it slows you down.
Well, they've done studies that show the farther away the food is, the less likely you are to get it. So, I don't like frozen chocolate. So the fact that I have to let it sit out and thaw for a little bit usually keeps me from just like mindlessly munching on it. But that helps me at least. Or I'll put it up high on a shelf. That way I actually have to try a little to get it. I don't just leave it out, but.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I know I can have it after my lunch and dinner because I do have a very big sweet tooth.
So what's your favorite kind of sushi?
Anything with salmon, whether it's smoked salmon or raw salmon. I like salmon a lot. Salmon and raw tuna too, but I like the kinds that have all the different sauces on them and stuff too. But if you're doing a long run on Saturday or Sunday, it's a good thing to eat the day before because there's a lot of rice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Build up those carb stores and then you've got it for the long run.
Get those glycogen stocked up.
Yeah. So Ryan, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I know my listeners learned a lot about just some basic sports nutrition stuff, especially if they're getting started. So if listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Probably email is a great way. It's just my first name, Ryan, Ryan, at redcoyoterunning.com. Or I have a dietitian Facebook page. It's Ryan Baggett, RD on Facebook. Recently finally got into Instagram, and it's dietitian_Ryan_runs. So that's an option too. I should be putting out a couple blog posts soon, but you can find that through my Facebook or my Instagram as well.
Yeah, I've noticed your Instagram, you've been putting some really good foods on there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get more back into that, the blogging and everything again. Kids kind of derail a little bit of everything, but I'm getting a little more time back. So I really enjoy doing the social media aspect of it as well. And I find it really helps my clients when I can link them to, hey, here's a great resource for quick meals. Here's a great recipe for those protein energy balls to eat before you run. It's just something that comes in handy. So as I feel a need for something, I can do a post on it to kind of help people in the future. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do that kind of that way. So, Well, guys, this has been another great episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast, the podcast that is all about learning more so you can do more with nutrition in your life.
You've just listened to an episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast. Be sure to get more information about this week's episode at www.nutritionexpertspodcast.com. Tune in next time for another great conversation with a nutrition expert and expand your personal knowledge in the field of nutrition, one conversation at a time.